today by Paul Stephen, Managing Director of TSX.V Limited, Altan Rio, stock code AMO. Paul, how are you?
Yeah, good, Dave. Nice to see you.
Can you tell us a little bit about Altan Rio?
Yeah, well, Dave, Altan Rio is a newly listed or reinstated company onto the Canadian Stock Exchange. We're focused on developing gold assets specifically in Australia. We think Australia is one of the leading areas to focus on, and of course gold is a very, very exciting commodity to be involved in. So listed, we've raised our initial capital, we've been trading for about three weeks now, and we're about to go out and commence our first drill program.
So how does a small Canadian company get its hands on such an important piece of tenure in such an amazing belt?
Look, there's a great bit of history there. The tenure that we've got, the whole belt's around 60 kilometres long, and the majority of it is owned by a very large Chinese listed company, and they run one of the few remaining mills there at the Marvel Lock Centre. When Sons of Gwalia consolidated the belt, they had a very successful period, but unfortunately went into administration in 2004. The asset package was then sold to St Barbara and then to Hong Kong listed Hanking Mining, and hence continued that large company theme. Through that process, the area that we've got was under a joint venture, so it was under an obligation of the company to earn into it. And at some point in time, Hanking Mining chose to hand back that joint venture and focus on the ground that they held 100%. So as part of the process of Hanking selling to Minjar Gold for $330 million in 2017, remember the gold price wasn't all that attractive in 2017, so that was a big transaction at that time, and through that process the company decided not to continue with the joint venture because it wasn't an 100% owned structure. Hence they handed it back to a local family, and we've done a deal to vend the project into our Canadian company with that local vendor. A really unique opportunity that certainly doesn't come around every day, especially in Western Australia with the reality of it is that most of Western Australia has been very, very well looked at. So as much as we have a huge industry here, it would be fair to say that the great well-known projects are all securely held by very successful companies.
So for such a prolific belt as Southern Cross is, what would you say to people who are saying, but there can't be anything new to find, all the exploration's been done?
Look, it's a great question, Dave, and there are parts of the belt. The belt is a very well-defined geological feature where the ultramafic rocks have collided with a very large granite dome, and it's very well known. The mineralisation is well understood, and the 60 kilometres of belt has had a large amount of work done on it. I mean, for our 30 kilometres alone, there are 6 large historic mines. So logically, that's a very fair statement. What we've found is that nearly all of those mines were very active in the 80s and 90s. Most of them closed down in the mid-90s when the gold price was around the $300 an ounce mark. And the technology and the understanding of the mineralisation has changed dramatically. For our tenure, a lot of the ground was considered to be hard to access. A large portion of it is under salt lakes, and back in the 80s and 90s, drilling on salt lakes was very, very expensive. They generally built groins out onto the lakes, and then they had to rehabilitate those, so really prohibitive from an exploration point of view. In Western Australia, the understanding of mineralisation under salt lakes has advanced enormously, and the use of tools like electromagnetics and ground surveys has also come a very, very long way. So what we've found, and we've collected all the data from those wonderful operators all the way down to Western Mining back in the 60s, were underground mining at Pilot, which we intend to reopen, is that their exploration tended to only go down 20 or 30 metres. The deepest hole drilled over this entire tenure is only around 50 metres deep. So what we're seeing is an opportunity to get into that bedrock. So the layer of bedrock for almost the entire 30 kilometres is around anywhere between 30 and 50 metres. And we see an opportunity to use modern exploration to look down into that bedrock And look, we all know, Dave, that that most of the major discoveries that have been made in Western Australia recently have been made next to a long strike, a known mineralised resource or a known mine. We've got 6 mines. We've got the strike and structural extensions of 6 very large 1980s, 1990s mines. I mean, our biggest problem is, frankly, we have too many targets. So prioritising them will be, in this environment in Western Australia, with the scarcity of drill rigs, because most drill rigs are booked out all the way through into next year now, and we've been talking to drillers that are booked out until June. Fortunately, one of our major shareholders is a successful drilling company, and of course he's somewhat motivated to look after us. So we're very happy to have these sort of relationships, and I'm pleased to report we will have a drill rig on site next week, and we're very excited about seeing what we can do.
And where to from here?
Well, I think the biggest thing for us is we have a couple of opportunities to get into production early. We've announced that we've done a joint venture with Minjar Gold, the owners of the Marvel Mill. They're a very large Chinese successful gold mining company. They'd like to see us develop that mine into production as quickly as possible. That certainly will be one of our first targets, and interestingly, we have a mining licence already on the project. So we have a lot of the permitting in place, we have the milling contract in place. So we're quite excited about looking at that prospect, but equally we have government co-funded expenditure for drilling. So some of the targets on this area are very exciting from the point of view that especially the ones under the salt lakes, where no one has ever done any deep diamond drilling. I think the Aries target immediately north of the town of Southern Cross has had one drill hole in it that went 12 metres at 4.5 grams and hasn't been followed up. I mean, the West Australian government are co-funding a diamond hole into that target, and so we've got a lot to do. We're always torn between the balance of getting some early cash flow into the company and actually doing some of these targets real credit and doing a proper drill out on them. But I think we'll deliver some success to shareholders in the next 3 to 6 months, and that's what we're focused on.
So for people looking at Altan Rio as a potential investment opportunity, it's a known gold jurisdiction on a known belt with genuine drill targets and a supportive JV partner should the pilot project get into production.
Yep, absolutely. I think not having to go and build a mill gives you a huge commercial advantage in that if we're successful in finding a deposit of some description, but it's not quite big enough to justify a large capital expenditure in building your own standalone mill, we don't have to. We've got a relationship with the local mill that would allow us to treat smaller deposits and bring them into production at a much earlier and much quicker time frame. So I think that's very exciting. I also think Southern Cross will continue to get back on the map. We know that there's now 4 or 5 other listed companies with sort of tenure peripheral to us. I think there'll be more of that into the future. There are other milling options for us. We've got Ramelius operating the Edna May mine only 62 kilometres away. They're having a huge amount of success there. So we're in close trucking proximity to not one but 2 very large, very successful mining camps. And I think what really gets us the most excited is that the last piece of modern exploration done on this ground was in 2004 by Sons of Gwalia. So that's a good 15, 16 years where the advancements in exploration technology and exploration understanding have come so far. We're building a team around that, and I think that we'd be very unlucky not to find ourselves having to deal with some early success on this project.
Strong foundations set, big year ahead, exciting times for Altan Rio.
It is, thank you.